man yet has fought with it and lived.
Only one person in a million can survive.
Survive. That's just what we do.
Yeah! I just hope we can win a game.
It's a good start.
It's a great start.
It's the first win.
Welcome to Survivor 2025, presented by Seize the Gap Fantasy Football. I'm Jamie G, and I'm back again with Magnum Mills to give you our NFL Survivor picks and strategy for Week 6 of the 2025 NFL season. Mills, I think we're both happy to put last week in the rear view. Bit of a bloodbath.
Last week, never heard. There was a week before this week. I thought time just began at this point. Like I woke up today and my back hurt, sore throat. Like, oh yeah, this is how time begins. So this is also how another episode of Survivor 2025 begins. Thanks for checking out our show. We are presented by Seize the Gap Fantasy Football. You can find our content wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Find us on social media at Seize the Gap FF and on the web at seizethegapff.com. Nice and easy to remember, just like the flaps, FLAPS. Follow, like, and please subscribe. If you had fun, please hit the thumb.
Before we get into Week 6, we do need to see how we did last week and get an overall glance so far on the 2025 season.
Last week, Jamie G, I got by the Titans there in that crazy win in Arizona. I believe two separate points. The Cardinals had a 99% win probability, like the first team in history to blow such a game. That was a crazy one. So I missed my lock. You took the Detroit Lions. They had a comfortable victory over the Bengals. You also hit on your deep. You had the Dallas Cowboys. High scoring game there, pretty impressive. Missing a lot of starters on that offensive line. Don't know what that says about the Jets, but the Cowboys certainly handled their business. I had the Los Angeles Rams. I broke a rule. I took the divisional game on the short week. Mac Jones stepped in. Both their starting wide receivers missing, and I just turned on the game and it was 14-0. So thanks for nothing, Kyron Williams. And we both said, you know what, last week all the top favorites, they look pretty good. So for the first time ever, we went with no fade. Like, with the top three, couple of teams were picking up all the ownership. Like they're certainly all going to win, right? And we're not even going to bring your Bills into it, but that Cardinals game, again, like you look at the score, you're like, oh, well, that one's over. Like I'm almost writing it down on the sheet. That was over. And then the craziness of the fumbled interception for a touchdown. I mean, I guess Tyler Lockett finally found a way to contribute. So good for you, Tyler Lockett. On the season, Jamie G, you have hit 4 or 5 of your locks for 80%. I am 3 of 5 for 60%. We both hit 3 of 5 deeps for 60%. You've hit 1 out of 5 fades for 20%, and I am over on the fades with the 0. We will see what happens this week. Once again, we have a couple of teams soaking up some ownership, but it's certainly a little bit more spread out than it was last week.
We have to shout out Wu-Tang Financial here, as they are the official sponsor of the Survivor Stock Watch. Remember, always diversify your bonds. And most importantly, Wu-Tang is in fact for the children.
Wu-Tang is for everybody, but most importantly, for the children. 2 teams up here. First, we have the Indianapolis Colts. Kind of had them at the high end of the wild card, kind of in the mid tier. I think they've officially stepped up into that top tier, into the ballers. They're not a full-on baller where you're using them against anybody, but they took care of business in an emphatic way. They've even been competitive in their losses. Pretty solid team overall. Daniel Jones hasn't turned back into a pumpkin yet. Jonathan Taylor scoring at will. Lots to like there. And then we have the San Francisco 49ers. You got to give them credit after that big win on Thursday Night Football with the backup quarterback, 2 backup wide receivers. They're replaying the Bourne identity. I mean, when Kendrick Bourne is doing it to you, you got to give some respect here. I don't know if we can put them all the way up into the baller tier based on their current injury status, but they're at least the very, very top of the kind of wild card teams where you could use them in most good matchups, and you're probably not going to want to go against them if you can help it. Jamie G, any thoughts on the teams up here, the Colts or the 49ers?
Well, I think both are a little bit surprising, and that I'll start there. I mean, the Colts, we had them as a team we were going to bet against, right? And that changed really quickly, and congrats to them. I think they're extremely balanced on offense. They're hard to stop, and their defense has been playing a lot better. So, they're not making the critical mistakes that we've seen Daniel Jones teams make in the past, and because of that, they're 4-1. You feel comfortable using them. There's still a little bit of twinge with using them, but I think you feel good. And San Francisco, I just don't know how they're 4-1. I don't know that I'm ready to give the same level of comfort that I'm giving the Colts to San Francisco, just because they're 4-1, yes, but they are overcoming incredible odds here to be 4-1. How long will that last? I don't know. We'll see. Week by week, we're gonna do this and figure out where teams are. But that one is probably more surprising than the Colts, honestly, just given the injuries and given the situation in San Francisco. I don't think either one of us had them at 4-1 here, 5 games in.
Well, what the crazy part is, the one week I choose to believe, and I was like, all right, I'm going to get on them before all these injuries happen and everything. They lose to the
Yeah,
Jaguars. Like every
yeah.
other, like I mean, the logic of that is just so mind numbing. I'm like, all right, well, that it's on right now. They're on a short week. All these injuries. We've seen the Rams just be a team that can handle their business, and then they blow it. I mean, I don't know how they go down 14-0. Kyron Williams it up. So we're not going to quite knock the Rams down a tier yet, but we are definitely knocking down the Las Vegas Raiders. They're at 1-4. We kind of had them. They'd fallen all the way to the very low end of the wild card scale, and they're officially a punching bag now. They are bag status. I think most weeks you can probably feel comfortable going against them. We'll see this week because they managed to find the one scenario where they are somehow favored by more than a field goal. We'll see if they can make good on that. And then you have the Jets. I mean, they started out the season kind of a mid-range wild card. They were down to kind of the lower end of the wild card scale, and now they are also officially just in that bag territory. They're 0-5. It's tough to see if they're going to get a win. There's already talks about maybe Terry Glenn's not even going to make it to his second season, so things are not looking good in North New Jersey. Probably not a shocker there. Jimmy G, any thoughts on the two teams down here on the stock watch, the Raiders and the Jets?
Yeah, I think we both thought that this was a possible outcome for these two teams. I think I'm most surprised that the Raiders are just have been so atrocious on offense, and really their lack of ability to run the game, the running game, their lack of ability to run the football. I mean, they invested a real high pick in Genti, and I think he's probably better than what has been shown. And I know there's been some highlights there, but for the most part, they just have really struggled to run the football. Geno Smith is probably playing the worst football we've seen since he played for the Jets. And it's just the whole thing is just really bad. So outside of, like Max Crosby, this team is terrible. And with the Jets, I think the thing that surprises me most is the defense and how bad it's been. It's virtually, Mills, the same players, the same Jimmies and Joes from the previous year where they were a very good and difficult defense to play against. But in this new scheme with Aaron Glenn leading the way and playing a lot of man and doing what they're doing, they have been terrible. They haven't been generating the pass rush that everyone thought. They haven't been particularly strong on the back end. It's just been really, really outrageous to see. And so I thought they would be in games closer. I don't know that I expect them to go 0-5, but maybe win a game or two here. But either way, I think the big thing is they're getting blown out in a lot of games. And they've just been really bad. So I think not totally surprised here on either one, but they're both pretty bad. And I think good opportunities to bet against here. The only thing you got with the Jets is eventually they're going to win one, right? So you don't want to bet against them that week. But other than that, I think both these teams are good teams to target going forward.
Yeah, at least in the short to near term, maybe eventually they do pick up on some scheme things, or Pete Carroll manages to get it going or what have you. But yeah, it's been bad all around. I've seen some kind of defenses of Geno that this isn't all his fault. The offensive line's been especially terrible, but it's not like the offensive line is going to get any better at some point here. So I think both of those teams are in deep trouble.
Me as well. We're kicking off week 6 here by breaking down the biggest favorites to win according to the DraftKings Sportsbook.
Up top, we have the Green Bay Packers at home against the Cincinnati Bengals, favored by 2 touchdowns, 14 points. Then there are 2 teams favored by 7.5 points. We have the Denver Broncos traveling on the road to face the Jets, but don't get it twisted. It's not Keith Sweat. This is the other London game we have this week. So even though the Jets are the home team, both teams are traveling across the pond, with the Broncos favored by 7.5 points. The Rams are traveling to Baltimore to face the Ravens. The visiting Los Angeles Rams are favored by 7.5 points. over the Ravens, who are expected to be without Lamar Jackson, and we might see Tyler Huntley in there at quarterback over Cooper Rush, but not sure that that's going to move the needle. On Thursday Night Football, my Philadelphia Eagles are 7-point favorites, traveling to North Jersey to face the New York Giants. Then we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, 5.5-point home favorites on Sunday against the division rivals, the Cleveland Browns. Then we have those Indianapolis Colts, 6.5-point favorites at home versus the struggling Arizona Cardinals. The Los Angeles Chargers are 4.5-point road favorites going to Miami to face the Dolphins, who blew it last week against the Panthers. Then we have the Raiders, 4.5-point favorites after getting absolutely demoralized on national television. 4.5-point home favorites against the Tennessee Titans. Managed to get their first win of the season last week. And then we have Jamie G's Buffalo Bills, 4.5-point favorites on Sunday Night Football, traveling to Atlanta to play the Falcons coming off of the bye. Jamie G, the big news this week, if you can call it the big news, Joe Flacco got traded to the Bengals. He is going to start. We do have the Packers facing off in week 9 against Carolina, so it's not quite a use it or lose it scenario. But if you look at some contests, like over on Yahoo, Green Bay is picking up about half of the ownership as of now. That'll probably come down a little bit, but it seems clear that they are by far going to be the most popular option in Survivor this week. Is this just like a Thunder Gun scenario? Is it just no hesitation, no surrender? Or does the, one of the things, either the Joe Flacco thing or the fact that they're going to be so highly owned, give you pause here?
Yeah, I think more so they're going to be so highly owned. I mean, yes, there's the narrative street here with Joe Flacco, but keep in mind, he's going to have about 5 days to really dive into the playbook. I think they'll be somewhat limited in what they're able to do. He is going to have two really good wide receivers and but a not so great offensive line. He's not very mobile. I just don't know that he's going to be able to come in and have like immediate success like we saw a couple years ago when he came in for Cleveland and had good success. Way different team. Also, I don't think he's going to have a defense here that's going to really be able to bail him out and slow down Green Bay's offense the way Cleveland did. So I think when you combine those things, I'm not too worried. I will say from a betting standpoint, I hate anytime there's 2 touchdowns or more on the spread. It's like my brain automatically goes, I have to take the plus points. But this is Survivor, and we're not going to worry about that. We're going to stay focused on Survivor. I think the biggest thing for me is how many people are going to use them. And if the unthinkable happens, you could get a real edge here. But I just don't think it can happen, Mills. I would be shocked at home, Green Bay, coming off a bye. It would be a real crazy thing here. So
what's even crazier is that exact thing already happened once to the Packers against Joe Flacco when he played for the Browns when they were, you know what I mean? The Browns have been so terrible. The Packers are going in there. They've been dominant for, oh, wait, no way, right? No way. And,
but I will say,
no, I'm not. It's just, I'm just pointing out that just how many narratives they are insane. I don't actually think there's no way that they should. I mean, you are right. But from a theory standpoint, anytime you get somebody approaching this much ownership, it's at least worth a thought just to fade them out of principle. Not only avoiding the fact what happens if they lose, now you're going to have access to this team down the road where half of the other teams don't. So to a certain extent, I think I am no real hesitation here, but I'm also not going to push all of my Packers bullets in this week, despite the great matchup, I think. So that's kind of the way I'm choosing to go with it. We talked about the Jets being stocked down. Is the Jets rule on? Is it just you can literally start anybody against the Jets in Survivor, or are we not quite there yet?
I don't think I'm quite there yet because they are going to win one game. There's a lot of pride in with Aaron Glenn, whether he's a good coach or not, or meant to be a head coach or not. There's a lot of pride, and I think he's going to be really focused on trying to get his first win. So I think it's got to be still a favorable matchup until they get that first win. But for me, I definitely think Denver is a good favorable matchup, even with them being on the road here.
Yes, I mean, Denver's coming off the big win at Philly. I mean, you don't like the overseas travel and everything, but all things considered, you have a lot of faith in Sean Payton and his coaching staff to be on top of those kind of things. I think for me personally, this is going to be a bit of a tough week to get away from the Rams. I know they just burned me last week, but I think the Ravens are eventually going to get this figured out. You kind of strike while the iron's hot. I don't want to use the Rams in any of those divisional games. I've learned my lesson there for sure. Are you comfortable with going against Baltimore here, or do you think somehow, some way they can pose a competitive threat for the Rams this week?
Well, I think you want to talk about narrative. I mean, you got the first time, not the first time, but you've got increased calls for John Harbaugh's job here. You've got fans booing him and flicking him off and screaming things at him as he's walking off the field last week. He kind of said, he was disappointed, obviously, right? So you listen to his press conference, they're not responding the way he thought. Here's the thing. They are going to have a new quarterback this. I just think Cooper Rush probably a very fine backup quarterback, but a very terrible fit for that offense. And Tyler Huntley, he's fine for a backup, but probably a much better fit for that offense. Will it give them enough to have a spark here? The Rams have a pretty good defense. In the end, I just don't know that Baltimore's defense is going to be able to slow down the Rams from scoring at least 24 to 27 points. And I just don't know that Baltimore offensively can do that without Lamar Jackson. So it just changes everything. Maybe now there's a threat of the rush, and you'll see Derek, the threat of the rushing quarterback, and you'll see Derrick Henry have a better day. But I really like the front four of the Rams here. So I do think that the Rams take care of business this week.
Baltimore just doesn't have the horses right now. Everyone's hurt, especially on that defense. That you can't. There's only so much you can do. I think given a little bit of time and the bye week, they get a little bit of healthy. I can see them righting the ship, but I think you can still attack them right now. I still think they're weak, kind of limping into that bye. I know they need this one, but you got to figure the Rams. They got the little mini bye playing on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah.
They also have to have a fire lit under them after blowing that game to the Rams the way they did. So I think there's kind of a little bit of the narratives canceling each other out a little bit there. Although the struggles in Baltimore are certainly more pronounced. And I did it last week. I went with a divisional game on the short week. Here you have the Philadelphia Eagles, same thing. They are bigger favorites than the Rams were last week. They're 7-point favorites, but they're on the road here on the short week in the divisional game. Does that make them an auto fade just based on, what we've seen over the years here?
I think they've got a very good chance of winning this game. However, we just saw it last week, short week, division game. This one, it's a little bit different in that the Giants are really fighting for their you got a coach trying to save his job. You got a lot of things going on in there, whereas the 49ers and the Rams were both kind of competing for first place in that division. So I think the narrative's a little bit different, but yeah, I just think there's going to be better spots to use the Eagles, honestly. And if this game was in Philadelphia and not on a short week, I think that would be a better spot, honestly. Even with the division matchup, but the short week on the road division matchup here just doesn't feel like a one that you should be banging the table for. There's probably better spots.
Well, if you want, that's 2 weeks from now when the Giants travel to the Link in Philly. So if you want to use them there, and I mean that's the other thing too with the Rams. Don't forget they were at home on a short week against a team missing their starting quarterback, their starting tight end, and their top 3 wide receivers. I would use almost any team in Survivor in that scenario, barring the short week divisional factor. You know what I mean? If you just took that aspect out of it, it looks like a great scenario, right? Especially again, Rams pretty good defense. We saw that offense put up a lot of points. How are the 49ers going to put up that many points on the defense? And the answer was Kendrick Bourne, just like everyone thought.
Well, over the years, we've come up with countless systems to help make our Survivor picks. But at a certain point, we stopped and asked ourselves, maybe it's not more complex than that. That led to the creation of our super simple system. Every week, we take the biggest favorite still available to us. That's it. Nothing more complex than that. How has the simple system fared so far in 2025?
It was 4-0 going into week 5. And of course, the system had the Arizona Cardinals, and they were looking very, very good until they weren't. So unfortunately, the system takes the first L of the season. It looked good on paper. I think we were both very comfortable with it. And unfortunately, it wound up being uncomfortable like the backseat of a Volkswagen. So the system is now 4-1 on the season. We cannot use Philadelphia, Baltimore, Buffalo, Detroit, or Arizona. Green Bay was not on that list. They are the biggest favorite this week. So we're going with the Packers. Green Bay, 2 touchdown favorites at home against the Bengals. Got to feel, I mean, about as good as you can here. The system is giving us by far the biggest favorite on the board. Still had them available. So it looks good, but it looked good last week. So we'll see if the system can get back on track here.
If you're hearing the Bee Gees, you've either traveled back to 1977 or it's time for the top 5 to stay alive. We each ranked our top survivor options for this week without worrying about who we might have already used or where we might want to save or any of the strategy. All that matters here is staying alive to see week 7.
So far on the season in the top 5, we are 18-6-1. Thanks for nothing Green Bay with the tie. Last week only went 2 for 3. We missed the Arizona, Buffalo, and Rams games, hit on the Detroit and Indianapolis games. This week we really have a top 6 because we have a tie at number 5 between the Buffalo Bills and the Dallas Cowboys. We both had the Bills at 6. Jamie G was higher on the Cowboys, having them at 3. I had them at 9. And then at number 4, we have the Indianapolis Colts, 6.5-point favorites at home against the Zona. We both had them at 4. At number 3, we have the LA Rams, 7.5-point favorites on the road at Baltimore. Jamie G had them at 5. I had them at 2. At number 2, we have the Denver Broncos traveling across the pond to face the Jets, 7.5-point favorites over in London. Jamie G had them at 2. I had them at 3. And then, no surprise, number 1 with a bullet, those Green Bay Packers against the Bengals, 14-point favorites. We both had them at number 1. I think we've talked about a number of these teams so far. How about the Colts? Are you still feeling pretty comfortable here? I think they're clearly a better team than Arizona, but Arizona's got to be hitting desperation mode. I mean, when your coach is getting fined $100K for, putting his hands on a player, they blow a game like that. It feels like this season can all of a sudden maybe Arizona's going to be the team it all implodes for, right? Remember, they almost lost to the Panthers in week 2 as well. They tried to kick that game away. So I actually feel fairly confident about the Colts here.
Yeah, me too. And yes, it is full blown. That is the worst loss I think I've ever seen in the history of watching football.
Statistically, it was legitimately, from a numerical standpoint, one of the worst losses in the history of sports.
It's got to be in top 5, maybe top 3 category. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is, but that's not a new thing for Arizona. They've been virtually in most games, if not every game, but they cannot find a way to close. In fact, they do the exact opposite and find ways to lose games. And when you look at Indianapolis here, they've been an absolute unit on offense. Like, they're moving the football, they're scoring and putting up points on everyone they play, and they're not making the critical mistakes. I don't see Arizona's defense being able to do anything to change that. They faced better defenses this year than Arizona. And defensively, they've been much improved, whereas Arizona, again, they're staying in games, they're doing enough, but they're not finding ways to win. They're finding ways to lose. So for that reason, I love Indianapolis here. I really do.
I think it comes down to this. If you still have them left, would you rather use them here against Zona or in 2 weeks at home against Tennessee? Because I think those are basically the 2 spots on the schedule in at least the realistic near to midterm future you can use them. Which would you prefer?
Yeah, probably Tennessee, even though it's the division game. I just still think they're kind of an easier matchup here. Arizona does have some weapons. They have scored some points offensively. They've been in games, right? It's just they can't finish. Whereas Tennessee, they've been in some games, but they're really bad. And their win last week was miraculous and kind of a act of God kind of win. So I'm going to lean Tennessee there.
I think you're right. It's just one of those things that sometimes, like, maybe I'll just worry about the trap game a little more. I think Arizona is clearly the better team. It just seems like in Survivor, the way things work, you know what I mean? And I think they'll also be a lot more highly owned against Tennessee. So I think that is probably where they'll certainly have the better probability of winning. But I don't know I don't think either are like a perfect slam dunk here, but I think you could probably split the difference if you had two, use them once here and then once against Tennessee maybe. I know you're probably going to be gun shy about using the Bills here, but they do offer some nice leverage on the field because they're not picking up much ownership. I know the Falcons are coming off of a bye, but they're also a team that got absolutely rocked by the Carolina Panthers at one point. I think the Bills can kind of keep it together. If you were going to take them on a road NFC South game, do you use them here or do you wait 2 weeks when you travel to Carolina?
Yeah, this is there's really not a wrong answer here for me. Obviously Carolina looks like the juicy choice, but again, there's reasons this week I think to go ahead and take them too. So depends on who you got left, but I don't know if there's a wrong answer.
Yeah, it's kind of tough because there looks like there's good options both this week and then that week in week 8. So, and again, you can hold them a little bit longer if you want, but this is more of the easy part of the Bills schedule. So, this is kind of where I was saving them for to use in one of these matchups. So I'm certainly considering them there. You were definitely a lot higher than I was on Dallas. I think that was just kind of a numbers game. They're kind of in a similar tier for me. I don't know that there's a lot of difference in that kind of 6 to 10 range when I did my rankings here. Is this confidence in Dallas or is this just you attacking Carolina?
Well, I think it's both. And, you've seen what Dallas has been doing offensively. And, I'm going to give Dak Prescott his flowers. He's been playing extremely well despite all the things around, what's going on with his offensive line, with his star receiver, with what we thought was going to be a zero run game. I'm giving him his credit, and I'm giving Brian Schottenheimer his credit. I think he's done a really good job so far this season as head coach here. And you couple that with Carolina. Yes, they've won some games, but it's been more about the other team kind of laying an egg. And there's a chance Dallas goes on the road here and lays an egg. I think that's possible with any team you bet. But I just think Dallas offense is going to be able to generate a lot of yardage and a lot of points. And I just don't see Carolina's offense being able to match that.
I think you're probably right. It's hard to see, although it's not like the Dallas defense has been some stalwart. I know some of the points they've given up have been garbage time variety, but it's not like, they you can really set your watch by the Dallas defense. Yeah, I think that's probably one again, if you still have the Cowboys left, it's tough to really find a much better spot than this. So I think they have that going for them. And then there's two games we kind of had right on the edge. I think people are going to struggle with in Survivor. How about the Washington Commanders? It's not a great matchup against the Bears with the Bears coming off the bye, but if you look at the Commanders schedule, unless you're going to want to use them against the Giants or the Cowboys, it's really tough to find another spot for them. Are you willing to go there? Are you a little bit worried about what the Bears might have to offer coming off, out of the bye? Maybe at least they have a very solid game plan for this week. I think that, I'd pick the Commanders in a pick'em league, but I'm struggling to use them in Survivor.
Yeah, I don't see why you want to use them in Survivor here. Again, this is they played last year. This was the Hail Mary game. Very fun game. It kind of put the Jaden Daniels magic on the map here, so to speak. But you've got a different situation in Chicago this year. You've got Ben Johnson. You've got kind of a week extra to plan coming out of the bye here. They've been okay. Washington still has some injuries at the skill level position. They're not totally, devoid of issues at this point. So I just don't. I think they win the game, but I just don't see the reason to bet this from Survivor. There's too many other good options on the board here.
Move the needle at all if you knew Terry McLaurin was going to play?
Maybe a little bit, but I still not enough to use them in Survivor.
I think I'm there with you. It's just tough to find another spot, maybe at Miami, you know what I mean? Because they're a pretty decent team. You feel like they're one of those teams like, oh, they're certainly one of the 18 best teams, assuming you go all the way through Survivor. You would think you would use them at some point, but just the way the puzzle pieces fit together, it's just kind of tough to see a spot for them. And I think a really interesting team here is the New England Patriots. You had them at 9, I had them at 11, kind of down towards the bottom here. They're at the Saints. Again, it's a nice game against the Bills, but we've also seen the Patriots struggle with their own, mistakes, especially the fumbles from the running back position. It's not the greatest defense. They have their moments. They create some plays on special teams, but the Saints just are kind of so boring, right? I mean, I could also see the Saints kind of winning this game the same way they beat the Giants last week, right? It's not like the Giants played absolutely terribly, but the Saints got a couple turnovers, played smart football, and managed to get it done. I think, again, the Patriots probably win here, but I'd almost rather take a chance on them against the Jets, maybe. I'm not sure if I were going to use them, but it does seem there might be a couple of spots going forward where you might want to use them. Why are you kind of hesitant here to use them? Is it because they're coming off the big win, because they're on the road, because you want to save them, or just, yeah, you just don't trust this one?
They give them credit, they won the game, but people are way overreacting about that win. And it's not just because I'm mad that they beat the Bills or anything like that. They're way overreacting. I've watched the game 7 times. 7 times. And did they do some good things? Yes. Did they have a pretty good game plan defensively? Sure. But this was more about the Bills with penalties and turnovers than it was about New England. They are still a long way away from being a train that you can lean on. Whereas New Orleans, um, give them their credit. They've played teams tough. There will also be a good game plan there. Their defense is veteran based, and they will. New England's offense is not some juggernaut. And give Drake May his credit. He rolled out of the pocket. He made some miracle plays that aren't always going to work, but they work that night, right? And so we'll see. But I am not ready to go all in and be like, well, New Orleans is bad. New England just beat the Bills, so that means we got to take them. I'm not ready for that yet. I think the matchup against the Jets or even Miami will be much better than this one on the road down in New Orleans.
Yeah, again, if they were home, I'd certainly think the calculus would be a little bit different. You do worry a little bit about the letdown week. And again, the Saints aren't quitting. They're not terribly talented, but Spencer Rattler is taking care of the ball. One of the most surprising kind of aspects of all this. The defense is getting a couple of timely turnovers. So I don't think you can bank on them. But, early in the season, we were trying to kind of fade the teams going against the Saints, and they kept losing but not playing badly. So, maybe that's going to carry over and they eke out a couple of wins here. You were certainly a lot higher on the Bucks than I am. You had them at 7. Is that just your ultimate confidence? I know you're kind of turned into a Baker Mayfield stan, right?
Yeah, Bake Show, baby. I think Baker Mayfield is really playing his best football right here, and look, they're finding ways to win the close ones, and we've seen this before with other teams, but they're kind of in these nail biters, and he's making the plays at the end of the game to win. I am still not a believer in San Francisco, Mills. I'm not. I know they're 4-1, and I know that they're winning football games and everything. The defense is much improved under Rob Saleh, but I am not a believer in this team, and I just think that going to Tampa on the road, Tampa's offense, even without Mike Evans, and even if Bucky Phillips isn't playing, I still think they're going to be good enough here to win this one. This is more about I think the Bucks are a much better, more rounded team. And give McCorkle Jones his credit and everything else. I'm not believing in them yet. San Francisco. I'm just not.
Oh, I'm not either, but I've just put them after last week. They're just on the team. I'm not going against them. I'm just not going to mess with it. I
That's
don't
fair.
really care who they're playing. If they manage to win that game with those receivers, no Nick Bosa, you know what I mean? I just don't, I don't quite get it, but it seems to keep happening. So I'm out. I'm done with the 49ers. If they get a good matchup at some point, I'll consider using them maybe, but I'm just not gonna go barking up that tree. And the Bucks are tough to figure out too. I mean, almost every game comes down to the last possession. You know what I mean? So they're another team that I'm trying to more or less avoid for the most part, except get in the fantasy goodness. Get some prop bets in, maybe get some overs. But man, they are the cardiac kids.
Yeah, they really are. All those are absolute, legit, fair, and valid points. I'm just going to chalk up San Francisco's game last week to a short week division game with two coaches that really know each other. And we talked about that. We talked about it on the show. We talked about it on all of our shows. Two coaches that intimately know each other, division game on short week. Shit happens in division games. That's just the way it is. We'll see if they can carry that over, cross country. We'll see.
And I was higher on the Steelers quite a bit than you were. Is that just you avoiding the divisional game for me? I looked at this one before the season. I pretty much locked it in. I suppose now you could say, all right, maybe you want the Steelers in the game against Cincinnati instead. But just looking at the schedule, those are probably the only two spots I'm ever going to feel comfortable using the Steelers. They're coming off the bye here. They get a rookie quarterback. And this is just, for me, it's just as good as it gets with the Steelers. Again, it's either here or the Bengals game. So I've kind of just committed to this one a little bit early. The Steelers are about exactly who I thought they were. So I'm okay to go there. But I get what you mean with the Browns. They can, in any given week, mess up a team. We saw them beat the Packers. So are they just a team you're going to kind of avoid going against now?
I like what I saw out of Dylan Gabriel last week. That was a really difficult spot for a rookie quarterback to go in there. And the offense seemed to be a lot more functioning than it was at times under Joe Flacco. But here's the real deal with this one. I'm really worried about Pittsburgh's ability to protect Aaron Rodgers against Cleveland's defense. I think Cleveland's defense is a defense that's not talked about enough in this league. They're really good, and particularly on the front. And we know what Myles Garrett's going to do, but they've got some players in there, man. I just don't see, Aaron. I see Aaron Rodgers getting sacked a lot, and if they can kind of, stop the run, I think this could be a really low scoring game, and that favors, Cleveland sticking around in this one and stealing one. So for me, it just was like, why even go there with it? And it's mostly just, may the Schwartz be with you, dude. I'm a big Jimmy Schwartz guy as a defensive coordinator. He's as good as it gets, and he's got the Cleveland's defense playing really good football.
2 points. One, I was actually disappointed. They had the Vikings starting four backups on their offensive line, and that Carson Wentz didn't die. I mean, they played, well, but they should have played better than that. And then two, the Steelers are coming off the bye. They're home. The Browns just played overseas last week. They're coming home, no bye. That definitely factored in there. With a rookie
That's a good
quarterback,
point.
that just seems like you talk about a tough place to play. You know what I mean? Again, I think this is the Steelers. This is probably about as healthy as they're going to get. They're home, rested, coming off the bye. You know what I mean? So this is why I circled this one on my calendar in advance. So I'm just kind of sticking with that there. But you're right. It's a very, very good Browns defensive front. I won't argue with any of that. I was higher on the Chargers. I had them at 7. You didn't go there. I just don't know that the Dolphins can really be worth it. I think the Chargers need this one. Their offensive line issues are terribly, terribly scary. But at the end of the day, I think that defense could do enough. If the Dolphins had held serve against the Panthers, I'm probably staying away here. But I think that's kind of the Dolphins showed you who they are. They had some momentum going after the Hill injury, Darren Waller. You had some good vibes, and I think they squandered all of it. I think the Chargers come in, they're just a far better team. I think they find a way to win. And at this point, given their injuries, it's getting tough to find a good spot to feel comfortable against the Chargers, right? You're probably waiting for that other Raiders game. So to me, now this just stands out as one of the better spots on the schedule to actually use them because you don't even know when they're going to get Joe Alt back. So this could be a continuing thing for them. So that was kind of my line of thinking here. Is this just a spot where you're worried about their injuries, or you're just avoiding the Dolphins because who knows what the hell the Dolphins are going to do?
Mills, when you're down to your fourth, fifth, and sixth string tackles, what was a position of strength is now an absolute liability. We saw the Chargers kind of they're chargering right now, right? Like it's happened basically 2 weeks in a row here. Losing that game to Washington, it just like they're a mess at the offensive line. They've got so many injuries, and while Miami is not a team to be afraid of, I just this is like I just can't do it with all those injuries, man. And the fact that they've already kind of chargered, and I've fell victim over the years a lot to getting chargered, where the Chargers just like completely screw me. All that combined, I'm out on this one.
Fair enough. The Chargers do have enough of a history here. Again, I think I wasn't drinking the Kool-Aid, but I was all right. You know what I mean? You could kind of see if you squinted how Miami could get it going here, and just it wasn't quite as bad as the Arizona collapse, but it was right up there. They had no
Yeah.
business. I mean, Bryce Young looked like he was going to get benched for Andy Dalton, and then they let him turn into Joe Montana, not even Joe Montana, in the fourth quarter there. So I'm just done with that. And there's just no way. You had the Raiders at 8. I get it. They're playing the Titans. They're 4.5 point favorites. Are you actually going to pull the trigger on the Raiders in a Survivor contest for money?
Prop no, but where I would consider though is a huge if you're in a big one and you're looking for separation and I still have multiple picks, I think I would. Yes, the Raiders have been atrocious, but so is Tennessee. I gotta go with the veteran team here, the veteran coach. Even though I have not been a big Pete Carroll fan this year, I gotta believe they find a way to win this one, man. If they don't, they might as well not even play the games anymore this season. Just forfeit them all and take your draft pick. I mean, no one's going to use them. They're virtually going to be unowned. Where else would you ever use them?
Oh, you can't really. I mean, maybe again. big contests like that, week 17, week 18, who knows? There's some crazy stuff that could happen. But you think they would be taking, for the draft pick. This is just one, just no. Even in a pick'em league, I'll probably just split this game and just move on. I just don't even want to. I think it hurts my enjoyment of football trying to think about this game. I'm just going to be sad. Let Brock Bowers get healthy, please. My dynasty shares want you to let him get healthy, but without him out
Yes.
there, man, that is really a toothless offense. And I don't even think Janty's been that bad. He's done pretty decent. He's just getting hit in the backfield like crazy. Some of the stats on like the depth of field, like he's just literally getting hit more often than not before he gets to the line of scrimmage. So it's tough to operate an offense like that, one way or the other. Overall, we've talked about most of these teams. I think a lot of people will have access to most. You could see some limitations here with Green Bay, Denver, and Buffalo through the first 5 weeks. There's definitely been spots you could have used them. And then neither one of us are willing to go there. The Detroit at Kansas City game, just why would you in Survivor, right? These are two teams you theoretically at least like to be able to use elsewhere. So why do it against each other? That just, but I do like Detroit here. Were you surprised that Kansas City's favored in this one?
A little bit. They've been really good on offense the last couple of weeks. They're kind of getting their swagger back here a little bit, and I think they'll probably get better when Rashee Rice comes back. They're coming off of just a really bad loss. Something weird's going on with Chris Jones. I don't know what it is. He completely gave. It didn't even play that last play really, and then just sat there. I mean, we're getting that look out of him like once every other game here, and it's not a good look. Um, I'm not sure what's going on there, but I am a little bit surprised by it. But I like Detroit in this one. Detroit in a pick'em league all day, and I'm probably going to love the over in this one, and I'm going to love some prop bets on the sports betting side.
Yeah, see, that's me. I would almost rather in a deep Survivor contest just take my chances on Detroit here than use the Raiders just because the Raiders feel so icky. But the Raiders would be a better play because obviously you'll have more chances to use Detroit down the pike. But I just don't even like. I feel it will taint my entry. You know what I mean? If I have the Raiders on there, even if they win, I feel it's just gonna it's gonna just infect them, man. It's gonna the whole mush thing, man. It's just gonna happen. You got to get them out of the room.
To win $1 million, you got to do crazy stuff, man. That's all I'll say. But
Yeah, like trust the Raiders.
like trust the Raiders. It's time to go from top five to the contest where we've each got five on it. This is our Luniz contest that we each began with 5 entries. We're trying to provide some insight into managing multiple entries in the same contest. It's been getting harder as we get deeper into the season here. Into the season. Let's go back to football. It's been getting harder as we get deeper into the season.
I think the phrasing meter just broke there. Last week we each had 2 entries left. I lost one with Arizona. Thanks for nothing. I did not have Detroit available, but could have gone with Indy. Got the other one through with Detroit. What up, Detroit? And you had two. You went with Indy and Detroit, so you got those both through. Let's give our picks here, and then we'll kind of break down our thoughts on the multi-entry strategy this week. Jamie G, you have 2 entries remaining. Who are you rolling with?
Mills, I'm going to go ahead and use Denver here. I know it's a London game, but they're such a better team. I expect their defense to be really good and give that Jets offense fits. And I expect offensively them to kind of be what they've been. Frustrating, but enough to win. They're coming off a huge win and they're going on the road, so it's a little bit of a letdown spot here. But I'm gonna go ahead and bet Denver to take care of business here. And then for my other pick, I'm gonna go ahead and take Green Bay. It's just why not?
Smoke them if you got them. If you ain't got them, and then you hit rock bottom. On my one remaining entry here, I'm going to go ahead and take the Rams, traveling to the Ravens. Unfortunately, again, that's not really a lot of management going on here. We've been getting whittled down. So we went ahead, pulled a big contest. We have multiple entries in. We got 4 here. Let's just kind of see how they kind of go together. Again, we've got 4 entries through the first 5 weeks, and you kind of look across the teams. We have Green Bay available on all 4 of these. So how many do you go with here? Do you go with 2 Green Bay? Do you go 3? Do you go 1 and save a little for that Carolina matchup? Because we've got a fair number of options to choose from here. So if you got 4 Green Bay, how many are you going with?
I think I'm going 2. Just because, what lessons I've learned in the past is too much, too heavy and too much concentration on one team is really dangerous. And so I think I would go 2. I could maybe be talked into 3 here, but I think I go 2 and focus on. There's a couple other really good options this week. And so I think I go two and focus on the other options for the other two.
I think that makes sense, and that's kind of what we said, right? Don't go all in, but kind of split the difference here. So going 2 or 4 would make sense. We have 1 share each left of Denver and Indy. Do you burn either of those here, or do you save them, you think?
I think with Indy, I'd like to, you do have the Tennessee matchup coming up, so you could save them there. And with Denver, boy, you'd love to use them at home and not in London. But if I had to pick one or the two, I'd probably just take Denver here and get it done and just know that they're gonna take care of business against the Jets.
And can I tell you, I'm using at least 1 share of the Rams here. Again, I think it's kind of tough
Yes.
to find a great spot for them. So I think we've got them, I think, available on 3 of the 4 entries. So I think using one of them to Green Bay, and then you mix in the Denver, or do you go? I mean, do you take a chance on a Washington, a New England, someone like that, or I mean, on the Eagles, or do you just go ahead and then maybe either go to the third Green Bay entry or go to a second Rams entry? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know that I want to get too cute yet. There'll be
You got
time
two
for
Dallas
that.
entries as well, so you could pull a Dallas trigger.
Yeah, I would probably rather use a Dallas if I was going outside of the bigs here. But you can absolutely talk me into the Rams. I love the Rams this week too. And I think I would probably go if it was me, I'd probably go Rams and then one Dallas entry.
Yeah, I think I'm probably somewhere there, either maybe a double up on the Rams or go to, because I like kind of saving Indy here for that Tennessee matchup down the road. And Denver does have I hate them traveling back again. They do get the Giants at home next week, but then I think it's only 2 weeks after that they get the home game against the Raiders. So I think with only 1 share left, maybe it makes sense to kind of back pocket them for there. So hopefully if you still have 4 or 5 entries left in the contest, good for you. Hopefully this helped you out a little bit. Check back next week. Hopefully we'll all still be alive.
It's time to get into our week 6 picks, starting with our locks. This is exactly what it sounds like. The teams we think are most likely to win this week. Since we can only use a team once as our lock, we do consider the strategy around where we might want to use a team later in the season, who we're saving, etc., etc.
Etc., etc. As I mentioned up top, Jamie G, you were successful last week for your locks. You have used Denver, Baltimore, Green Bay, Buffalo, Detroit, 4-1 on the season. Who is your lock for week 6?
Mills, I'm going to go ahead and take Dallas here at Carolina. I think this is a really good spot to use them. I don't have, Green Bay or Denver this week available, so I'm going to go ahead and take Dallas. I love the Rams, but I'll find a spot to use them later on in the season here. But I'm going to go ahead and take Dallas at Carolina.
Nice. I'm also liking the Cowboys this week. I am 3-2 with my locks. I have used Philadelphia, Dallas, Green Bay, Denver, Arizona. So a lot of those big options off the board for me. I'm also going to have conviction of going back to the well. They burned me as my deep last week, but I am locking it down with the Los Angeles Rams this week, traveling to Baltimore. Like them to bounce back against a struggling Ravens team, and not only struggling, but an extremely injured Ravens team.
Unfortunately, we're not heading down to Flavortown, but we are rolling into the deeps. We're diving deep here to find a couple of low-owned options to help you avoid a bloodbath like we saw in week 5. Usually, these teams are outside of the 5 most owned teams, but every week is a different in different survivor contests. As with our locks, we can each only use a team once as our deep.
I think it's my turn to go first here. 3-2 on the season with my deeps. I have used Pittsburgh, New England, Indianapolis, San Francisco, and the Rams. I was going to go with the Cowboys as my deep because technically they're not picking up that much ownership, but Jamie G went with them as his lock. So I'm going to switch it up and I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills as my deep. They're picking up less than 5% ownership, not being used much. I think it gives you excellent leverage on the rest of your field. Yes, you can maybe save them for that Carolina matchup, but I have a lot of confidence in that coaching staff and that team. They're going to bounce back, not lose 2 in a row, get it done against a Falcons team that has been a little bit Jekyll and Hyde this season. Jamie G, you are also 3-2 on your deeps for the season. You have used Miami, the Los Angeles Chargers, Atlanta, the Los Angeles Rams, and Dallas Cowboys. So no Los Angeles for you. Who are you going with as your deep in week 6?
I'm either going to look like a genius or an idiot, but I'm going to take the Raiders here. I know, Jamie G. What are you doing? Are you drunk? No, I'm not. I'm not. We're recording this in the daytime, okay? I wait to have my drinks. But the thing here is, Mills, can't picture ever wanting to use the Raiders ever again. Will they ever have a game this season where they're favored again? And Tennessee, yes, they had their miracle last week. I don't think Tennessee can win a football game without those type of miracles. The Raiders, while they've been absolutely atrocious, I'm going to trust the veterans and the veteran coach here. And I'm going to go ahead and do it, Mills. I'm taking the Raiders against the Tennessee Titans.
Okay, I applaud your testicular fortitude.
This is a good time to remind you, like and subscribe, because you will not want to miss next week when, if I'm right, I proclaim to be a genius. And if I'm wrong, Mills piles on me in a very funny way. So make sure you like and subscribe.
I won't pile on as long as you promise, if you're right, to record a video of you doing the Sam Cassell dance.
Well, we'll let you know if we decide to do that or not.
That's all I want. Everybody wins then, I feel.
Sometimes it's not who you pick, but who you avoid. For that, we've got our fades, our highly owned teams that you should avoid using in Survivor this week. And unlike the other picks where we can only use them once, we're allowed to fade a team as many times as we please, as long as they're being used by a high percentage of Survivor entries.
Jamie G, we have not been terribly successful on these this season, but we have avoided the Noid, so we have that going for us, which is nice. You are 1-4 on your fades this season. So far, you have faded Arizona, San Francisco, Kansas City, the Los Angeles Chargers, and nobody. Who is your fade for Week 6? Which highly owned team are you staying away from?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit earlier. I'm fading Pittsburgh this week, and I get it. It's a great spot to use them. You look at it on paper and you say, man, that makes a ton of sense. And those are the type of ones where I get worried. And when I look at the division matchup here, and I look at a Cleveland defense that's kept them in a lot of games, and a Pittsburgh team that I don't know that they're having a hard time protecting Aaron Rodgers. Yes, give them credit. They've done some things on offense. The defense, I think, is old and not as good as it once was. Yes, Tomlin against a rookie quarterback, all that stuff makes sense, but I just don't feel comfortable using him here against a Cleveland defense that could keep this game ugly and close and then get a chance down the way here to finish it. And I think that's how this game's going to play out. I just don't see this being a blowout. I see it being a close, gritty division game with a lot of defense. And it's going to come down to kind of the fourth quarter and who makes one play here, or who makes one mistake. And those are the type of games that I don't want any part of. So for that, I'm going to fade Pittsburgh.
Ooh, we're going to make sure we send that over to Mike Tomlin, some bulletin board material for the Steelers. I am 0-5 with my fades on the season. I faded Arizona, San Francisco, Kansas City, Houston, and nobody. Pains me here, but I'm going to go with a straight system fade. I'm going to fade my Philadelphia Eagles. They're playing in a divisional game on a short week against a team they'll be playing at home 2 weeks from now. There are other options here, just not the spot for it. I know they're 7-point favorites, but they're picking up fair ownership here. One of the 3 most owned teams. I think this week you can certainly find better options. So I'm hoping they win. I think they win, but if you want to play them against the Giants, just wait like 20 days or whatever, and you can play them at home on full rest against the Giants at the Link, and that's a much better spot to use the Eagles, I think.
Totally agree with that logic. In Survivor, picking a loser, it's just another way to win, which is what we've been doing here on Losing to Win. This is a Survivor contest, but instead of picking a team to win every week, you have to pick a team to lose every week. Just like Survivor Leagues, you can only use a team once. Mills, go ahead and give us the winners, because we lost in week 5, right?
Yeah, see, this is Jamie G won't be happy with this one. I am 2-3 on the season. He's doing much better, but he won't like it because I have used the New York Giants and the Bears, which were good. And then I picked 3 winners in a row on accident. Detroit won in Baltimore. Jacksonville beat the San Francisco 49ers, and the New England Patriots beat the Buffalo Bills. I'm trying not to just go against here. We're going to do this for 18 weeks. So I've been trying to pick my spots and not always just go with the worst possible team. Hasn't worked lately, but I'm going to take one more chance here. This week, I'm going to pick the Baltimore Ravens Ravens to lose. I think they're going to get healthier. They have a bye upcoming, so I don't know when I'm really going to pick them to lose again. So it's kind of more about the opportunity. And I do like the Rams as a team. Don't get me wrong, but I can't see myself being able to go against Baltimore with this kind of confidence at any point throughout the season. We got to use 18 teams doing this. So that's my logic. JBG, you are still a loser, baby. You have lost every week with Tennessee, Cleveland, New Orleans, Cincinnati, and the Raiders. You're running out of dregs here, but I think you have at least one more bottom of the barrel you can scrape. Who is your loser for week 6?
Yeah, you know, Mills, you can always find a team that's in a tough spot, and that's how I'm approaching this. I'm going to go ahead and take the Jets here. I think eventually they probably win one, but against this Denver defense, we've seen that offense of the Jets really struggle to protect Fields, struggle to run the football, struggle to develop a passing game. When you look at what Denver has on defense, that spells real trouble for the Jets here offensively. And we've seen the Jets defense not play a good game of football really yet this season. So I'm going to go ahead and take Denver, even though it's in London, even though it's at 9:30 in the morning. I'm going to have to get up early and watch it. That's fine. I'm going to go ahead and take the Jets here to lose. We always remind you to have a plan and get lucky. So it's time to test our luck here as we abide by the wheel in the sky. Every week, we put every favored team that hasn't been chosen yet on the wheel. Then we spin the wheel and abide by its decision and mostly hope to get lucky. Mills, how did the wheel treat us in week 5, and what are the options looking like for week 6? Wheel.
JBG, the wheel looked like it was going to screw us in week 5. It went with the Saints. We were like, oh no, wheel, what are you doing to us? The wheel was doing it. It's the only system that had it on point last week. The wheel is 5-0. It has used Cincinnati, the Los Angeles Rams, Indianapolis Colts, Houston Texans, and New Orleans Saints. Look at that, JBG. It's used the Bengals, the Texans, and the Saints first. The wheel is something. The wheel is something special here. This week we have 13 options on the wheel. 2 teams on buys, and we are not able to use the Rams or the Colts. JBG, anybody in particular here? Are you rooting for that Packers chalk, or do you want the wheel to dig deep again?
I mean, the wheel has been unbelievable at digging deep. It has got stones and knowledge that I will never, ever come close to having. At this point, Mills, I'm fully abiding by the wheel in the sky. The dude abides.
And basically, so he's over there like well, now he probably wants it to pick now it's good for it to pick the Bills now. So now it's okay to pick the Bills. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes here. I just thought, you know what, just give us something not crazy this week. It gets a little, I don't want any part of that San Francisco, Tampa Bay game, that kind of thing. I don't really want any of that Seattle, Jacksonville game. I don't want any of that stuff really. So let's kind of just avoid those favorites. And I think I will be a happy guy. Here we go. Week 6. We're abiding by the wheel in the sky.
Wheel.
Wheel. Oh no.
Wheel.
Oh, one of us is going to be unhappy.
Oh my God, Wheel! You went against everything with my losing to win. Jeez, or not my losing to win, but my fade.
Well, yeah, and it was gonna go against my fade with the Eagles. So one way or the other, like I said, one of us was going to be unhappy. But I guess we don't have to deal with the Chargers or the Raiders, so we got that going for us, which is nice. So, all right, Steelers. I mean, I don't think we're ever going to feel great about using them. So we said we would abide by the wheel. We'll have faith in the wheel. So all hail the wheel.
All hail the wheel. Wheel may make me look stupid. The wheel will humble you real quick. We know that. Remember, getting lucky, it's only half the battle. You also need to have a plan. In this case, we have our grand plan, which we formulated way back in the ancient dog day time of August.
Unfortunately, last week was the first hiccup. The plan is 4-1. Last week we had Jamie G's Buffalo Bills. Certainly maybe looked a little bit better preseason against the Patriots there, but we still felt pretty confident. So unfortunately, that was the first L of the season. The plan is 4-1, and it has used Denver, San Francisco, Seattle, Detroit, and Buffalo. Again, we did this back in August, and the plan concurs with the wheel. We were pretty sure Cleveland was going to be bad. Pittsburgh would probably be doing their Pittsburgh things, coming off the bye at home, look like a better spot than them. Now you have the Bengals looking like that might be the opportune spot, but that's what the plan's going with. It's got the Steelers against the Browns, so somebody's going to win and someone's going to lose this weekend. We will find out.
Yes, we will. Well, we're going to close out the show here with our contest picks, starting out with the classic single entry, ties don't advance, they count as a loss, seize the gap Survivor contest.
Oh, and we should note that this will be the final, the end of the first third of the season. So we will be starting our Survivor Junior next week. It's already getting to that point. As far as our classic contest here, we are both still alive. I will go first. I have used Philadelphia, Arizona, Seattle, Detroit, and Indianapolis. Not going to overthink it this week. Go ahead, give me the Green Bay Packers. Jamie G also 5-0. You have used Denver, Baltimore, Seattle, Buffalo, and Detroit. Who are you going with for the contest in week 6?
I'm going to take Green Bay Mills. It's just I've got them. I've come this far. I understand the narrative and all that, but I'm gonna bank on Green Bay taking business at home, coming off the bye against a really bad Cincinnati team here with a defense that Green Bay's offense can exploit. Give me the Green Bay Packers here.
Yeah, again, I think this is a case where you don't want to overthink it. And then we have our entry in the big Yahoo Survivor contest. I thought this might be interesting to discuss. Still alive here, having used Philadelphia, Arizona, Seattle, Denver, and Detroit. That means this week, amongst others, we have access to the Colts, Patriots, Steelers, Cowboys, Rams, Raiders, Packers, Bills, Commanders. What do you think, Jamie G? Is this a spot? Should we do the same thing again? This is a very large contest. Do we go with the chalk with Green Bay here? Do we maybe go with the Rams, or do we take a chance on your Cowboys, or just use the Colts here and find another option in Week 9 when they get the Titans?
Yeah, we know when we went through this, there's another kind of onslaught of two really tough weeks coming up. We knew 6 and 7, 5, 5, 6, 7 were going to be tough. I think it's Mills. Is it 13, 14, 15, 16? There's another real tough
Yeah, 12, 13, I think. Yeah, and
12,
then this
13.
kind of, yeah, and this kind of like 5, 6 was the first one here, really.
Yeah, and so we know that another one's coming up, and I think honestly, I think it'll be harder than what we're going through right now with week 5 and 6. So I think in a big league like this, it makes sense to maybe hang on to some of these blue chippers. You've got some optionality here. I really like taking the Rams here. It just feels like a good spot. So I think that's probably where I would lean, or Dallas, honestly, because again, you're not going to really want to use Dallas a ton in the division games. This feels like a really good spot against a weak, Carolina opponent where Dallas is really firing on all cylinders right now offensively.
Yeah, Dallas is interesting here because if you look at their schedule, I think the next time you could really use them is week 11 when they travel to Vegas to play the Raiders, and that is a long time in Survivor leagues. Green Bay and the Rams are interesting because they both have very good matchups here, and then in week 9, Green Bay's home against Carolina, and the Rams are home against the Saints. So it kind of almost feels like, you know what I mean? You use one here and one there a little bit. I don't know. I think it's probably either one of those two, or then you don't go ahead, you drop down to the Dallas there. I think that probably works as well. You can hold on to Indy or Buffalo because they both have good matchups in week 8. Yeah, I mean, even the Patriots, I don't think you'd use them here, but they get Tennessee in week 7. So I don't know. I think it's kind of the Rams or Dallas for me. What do you think? Do you maybe try to back pocket the Rams and give yourself the optionality down the road, or do you just kind of, maybe roll the dice with the Cowboys here?
Yeah, I think there's not a wrong answer, but I like using Dallas here. I think you'll probably have another spot to use the Rams, but if you want to use the Rams against Baltimore, it makes total sense, and I really love that too. And you're still leaving yourself some of these better teams.
All right, so let's lean towards the Rams there. And then we have an entry in one of those really big sports book survivor contests here. Through 5 weeks have used Denver, Baltimore, Seattle, Detroit, and Indianapolis. So again, still some good options here. Kind of the same thing. Green Bay, the Rams, the Bills, Cowboys, Commanders, Patriots, Eagles, Raiders. So I think it's kind of the same logic here, right? You kind of drill down to Green Bay or the Rams. I think especially on this entry, you have used Detroit, Denver, Indy already. So maybe it makes more sense to, because you've used some of the bigger options here, maybe like use the Rams in the other contest and use Dallas on this one or something like that. Does that make some kind of sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. And I think that's absolutely the play here. We talked about being able to utilize Green Bay 2 weeks from now when they've got Carolina. That's going to be outstanding to be able to have that in your back pocket because 90% of the entries this week, maybe more, are going to go with Green Bay.
Yeah, and the Rams still do. It's a while down the stretch, but you still do have a matchup against the Panthers in Week 13 for them. So that's a bit more to hold on to. But so even if you don't use them here or in Week 9, I think there's still opportunity to use them down the stretch. So I think I like the way that's kind of working out there. So we will check back in on those next week. Hopefully, again, everybody will still be alive. Y'all will still be alive. We'll still be here, still be alive in real life, and all of that good stuff. And ideally, this week the Eagles and Bills will also win. That would be nice.
That would be very nice. That about does it here for week 6. Good luck this week. Remember, we'll be here each and every week during the season to help you survive. If you've got any questions about strategy or you're struggling with your pick this week, drop a comment below or hit us up on social media. Mills will give you all the details.
This has been Survivor 2025 presented by Seize the Gap Fantasy Football. Find our content wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Find us on social media at Seize the Gap FF and on the interwebs at seizethegapff.com. Nice and easy to remember, just like the flaps, FLAPS. Very critical to our success. Follow, like, and please subscribe. If you had fun, please touch that thumb. Thanks again for checking out the show. I am Magnum Mills. He is Jamie G. And now that you've checked us out, all you need to do is have a plan and get lucky.
Stay lucky, my friend.